Located in Southeast Asia, Indonesia is an archipelago nation composed of tens of thousands of tropical volcanic islands that rise up out of the Indian Ocean. Full of rich history and culture, natural beauty, and vibrant cities, Indonesia is truly a unique country. The archipelago nation is currently home to roughly 250 million people, of which over 50% currently live in urban areas. Indonesia's population tends to be highly concentrated. Despite accounting for a mere 7% of Indonesia's total landmass, the island of Java is home to nearly 60% of Indonesia's population. Indonesia is a developing country with an average annual GDP per capita of under $10,000 US. However, in recent history, Indonesia's economy has seen steady growth. This growth combined with a growing population indicates that the nation's economic well-being is full of potential. Unfortunately, the physical and human geography of Indonesia makes the country a hotbed for natural disasters. Indonesia regularly experiences a variety of hazards. The archipelago is situated at the confluence of three tectonic plates, resulting in an especially seismically active region. In addition, Indonesia's tropical climate results in regular hydrological hazards such as tropical storms, which can also trigger floods and a variety of mass movement events. The potential for these common hazards to turn into disasters are further increased by Indonesia's socio-economic status. Underdevelopment combined with densely populated regions such as the island of Java results in increased vulnerability, thus increasing the likelihood of loss, turning a hazard into a disaster. It is estimated that over the last 30 years, Indonesia has experienced an average of almost 300 natural disasters. Each year, roughly 8,000 Indonesians lose their lives to a disaster. In addition to the tragic loss of life, the destruction of infrastructure, the interruption of livelihoods, and the costs associated with emergency relief and reconstruction, natural disasters force heavy burdens upon the Indonesian socio and economic well-being. The horrible losses and hardships caused by frequent natural disasters stress the importance of preventing a hazard from creating loss and turning into a disaster. This process is often referred to as disaster risk reduction. Disaster risk reduction can be large-scale efforts such as building dikes and levees or small-scale initiatives such as planting trees to reduce erosion. Though large-scale efforts often have access to reliable funding and have the ability to be implemented across an entire nation or region, large-scale initiatives can often leave gaps and neglect the needs of locals and take long periods of time to implement. Gaps that are left or created by large-scale disaster risk reduction initiatives are then left up to localized initiatives to build resilience to potential hazards. These localized initiatives can either be ran and organized by local organizations or community groups, or they can be run by larger entities such as NGOs but implemented on a small community-specific scale. Upon visiting communities across the island of Java that are subject to a vast variety of disasters, it is easy to find community-level disaster risk reduction programs and initiatives that are improving lives and helping fill the gaps left by large-scale disaster risk reduction initiatives. Located in the heart of Yogyakarta is the community of Sekolah Sungai. Although technically an informal settlement, most consider this community of 450 families as a formal informal settlement. Although the locals do not possess any land titles, they operate as an organized community and even have an appointed community leader. Sekolah Sungai is nestled along either sides of the Renongo River. This river runs from the headwaters on the slopes of Mount Merapi south through Yogyakarta before emptying out into the Indian Ocean. Sekolah Sungai has experienced an unfortunate amount of natural disasters. Located right on the river, the community experiences regular floodings that affects nearly 70% of the local families. Since 2010, flooding has been an annual occurrence. Also, the community was badly affected by the 2006 Yogyakarta earthquake that caused extensive damage and loss of life to the entire region. The government has made attempts to reduce the risk of flooding, including by the construction of flood walls. However, these efforts have done little to reduce the frequency or severity of flood events. Despite having very little economic capital, the community of Sekolah Sungai is very rich in social capital, and they use this social capital to help rebuild after disasters and help prevent damage from future disasters. Although the locals believe floods and earthquakes are acts of God and there is no way in preventing them, they have taken action to reduce the loss caused by such events. To warn the residents of a possible incoming flooding, the community relies on a traditional warning system. If a local receives an alert on their cell phone from the National Disaster Management Authority about rising water levels upstream, they create a loud noise using a metal pole to sound the alarm. This is crucial as it helps warn villagers who do not have access to communication technology and are unable to receive warnings from the national authority. Education is also playing a large role in community-level disaster risk reduction in the Sekolah Sungai community. Following the 2006 earthquake, the regional and Indonesian government implemented disaster education. However, over time this initiative faded out. That is why a local NGO named Project Child Indonesia, who operates a school in Sekolah Sungai, has incorporated hazard and disaster education into its curriculum. This way, regular hazard education accompanies the regular threat of hazards. The community of Sekolah Sungai is a great example of how a cookie-cutter approach is not always an effective approach to disaster risk reduction, thus emphasizing the importance of community groups and leaders to actively pursue community-level disaster risk reduction projects. The focus on education and warning systems in the community of Sekolah Sungai can also be seen in community-level disaster risk reduction on the other side of Java, in the town of Pangandaran. The town of Pangandaran is located on the southern coast in the province of West Java. On July 17, 2006, Pangandaran was hit by a devastating tsunami. With waves estimated to be over 7 meters high in some locations, the tsunami claimed hundreds of lives and destroyed local homes, businesses, infrastructure along the coast of Pangandaran and surrounding areas. Despite the ever-present threat of a tsunami, locals did not live in fear as they believed that tsunamis were simply an act of God and there's nothing they can do to stop or prevent them. As a result, locals were not prepared. On July 17, 2006, when the water levels receded before the first wave made landfall, curiosity got the better of many locals as they swarmed the beach to observe the odd sight. This reaction would prove costly minutes later when the tsunami made landfall. Following the disaster, various levels of government attempted to prevent similar disasters from occurring by rezoning coastal areas to prevent locals from rebuilding immediately next to the ocean. However, the locals, not willing to abandon their coastal livelihoods, soon rebuilt their homes and businesses in the same location as before the tsunami. This exemplifies how local livelihoods are often not taken into close consideration during large-scale disaster risk reduction projects. As a result, local governments and community groups have focused their disaster risk reduction initiatives on ways that will bring minimal disruption to local livelihood. Following the 2006 tsunami, the local life-saving society speakers along the Pangandaran beach have been adapted to have the ability to broadcast tsunami warnings and evacuation instructions. This ability to broadcast warnings to all members of the community is crucial. Literature suggests that despite stark improvements in the ability to predict where and when a tsunami will make landfall, there remains an inability in developing countries such as Indonesia to warn society at the household level. In Pangandaran, the adaptation of the local life-saving society's network of speakers is a great example of community disaster risk reduction, as they have used local infrastructure to help increase the effectiveness of early warning systems on a small community scale. The community of Pangandaran has also adopted education as a focus of disaster risk reduction. After realizing that locals will not move away from at-risk areas, it was decided it would be best to educate locals on what should be done when they hear a tsunami warning. The community now runs tsunami evacuation drills every 6 months. These initiatives taken by the Pangandaran community may be small. However, with added awareness and education, the community and its citizens are certainly better prepared for the next tsunami. Academic literature also suggests community-level disaster risk reduction has the potential to do more than just increase resilience to natural hazards. In Allen's 2006 article regarding community-level disaster risk reduction in the journal Disasters, she argues that community-based disaster preparedness may be instrumental not only in formulating local coping and adaptation strategies, but also in situating them within wider development planning. This suggests that community-level disaster risk reduction can do more than just help build resilience to natural hazards, but also contribute to many aspects of the community, including development. Furthermore, there are real-life examples of the added potential of community-level disaster risk reduction. Located in central Java, next to the Sungai Bengawan Solo River, is the city of Surakarta, also known as Solo. In the city, many communities that border the river experience regular flooding. In attempts to protect the city from floods, the government has constructed dikes along the floodplains. However, the informal communities that were situated between the riverbanks and the dikes were still exposed to annual flooding. Luckily, there has been very successful resettlement programs to relocate these vulnerable communities out of the flood-prone areas. Despite the success, some locals refuse to disrupt their livelihoods, and they remain living and earning a living in flood-prone areas. As a result, remaining communities and NGOs have had to work together to develop disaster risk reduction strategies. In addition to flood awareness programs and education, a local division of the Red Cross has started a project that not only helps protect the community from floods, but also creates an added income for the locals. The Red Cross has introduced a crop to the locals that can be planted along the riverbanks. During the rainy season, the crops help prevent the riverbanks from eroding and help suppress high water levels. Then, during the dry season, when there is not a great threat of flooding, the locals can harvest the crops and sell their yields to supplement their income. A project such as this shows how small-scale disaster risk reduction projects can do more than just protect vulnerable communities. In knowing the needs and abilities of said communities, localized disaster risk reduction projects can double as opportunities for economic development across Java, Indonesia, and the rest of the world. Disaster risk reduction projects of all sizes are in place to help save lives and protect important infrastructure from the forces of planet Earth. It would be easy to only pay attention to big projects with big price tags that aim to protect entire regions or cities. However, it would be negligent to disregard the importance and effectiveness of smaller scale projects. As seen in communities across Java, community-level disaster risk reduction initiatives are playing active roles in increasing resilience to all sorts of natural hazards. Initiatives such as disaster education and increasing the effectiveness of early warning systems have seen the most success when implemented at a community level. Furthermore, it is impossible to refute the potential that community-level disaster risk reduction has in its ability to contribute to the development of a community as a whole. It is therefore important that governments of all levels, NGOs, and community leaders promote, support, and encourage community-level disaster risk reduction. That way, any gaps created or left by large-scale efforts can be filled and the resilience of all communities can continue to grow. This way, communities have the opportunity to meet their potential.